It was a really good movie. It's definitely something you need to watch on your own, though, to fully appreciate it and to fully understand it. Bunch of teens, including Chris Hemsworth, go to a cabin that their friend rented out for him. This is also more on the horror comedy scale than a full on horror. And actually does it pretty well. It's a pretty funny movie, both at times being somewhat scary. It's still weird to see Chris Hemsworth in a horror movie, even if it's not full on horror. He's just not someone I picture when I think of horror movies. There's also this dude named Jesse Williams in this movie, and he sounds a lot like Rami Malek. But yeah, there's only 5 friends. One of them is the typical slut character or whatever. I didn't think she was slutty at all. And she gets killed first. Kurt is kind of a jerk. I didn't really care for his character most of the time. With him also having like little weird line where he fetishizes lesbians. He's just not the nicest character. So it did piss me off when the people use their controls to make it so Kurt changed his mind. Tells them all to stick together no matter what, and to barricade the place. And then they just kind of let out like this little gas. And now he wants them all to split up in typical horror movie fashion. Made me mad. I was like, come on, man. I hated when they would do that stuff, you know. You said it's their decisions that causes them to get in this situation. If they decide to go in the cellar, then that's on them. But, you know, they're forcing their way into it with that shit, making them change their minds and blowing up the tunnel so they can't leave. It's crazy. They also have the typical, you know, crazy dude that tries to warn them, but they don't listen to him. And he's actually hired by them to do that, which is pretty cool. So it's kind of like the invention of horror movies. It's like maybe all the horror movies are real in this universe and they're just being, you know, controlled by the person behind the scenes. It's a very interesting movie. So we find out that they're, you know, killing all these people with a bunch of different creatures betting on it, you know, shit like that. All because of like ancient gods that are below them for a ritual, and there's all ones all over the world, like Japan and everything. So if they all fail, then obviously they'll lose. Japan fails to kill people when it's literal kids. Um, that was kind of goofy. They point that out too. Anyways, yeah. Um, there's also a stoner character named Marty. He was by far my favorite character. I was sad when he, you know, had that typical horror movie death where he's dragged off screen and we don't see him for a lot of the movie. Then it turns out he's alive. It actually fooled me. Because most of the deaths weren't as gruesome as typical horror movies until way later in the movie. Just the 5 main characters. One girl gets like her head cut off screen. And then we like see her head later, but her death isn't that violent. and Kurt smashes into a barrier and falls. Just not as gory as typical horror movies. So I figured, yeah, Marty's probably dead. But nope, they still went for the typical horror stereotype, which made me happy because I really liked Marty. He was a pretty interesting character. I liked all the characters besides Kurt and Jules, really, actually. So, actually, not all of them. Jules just didn't really do enough. She's bland, kind of a bland character, and she died first. And she was a bit pushy. So, there's that. Um, but yeah, they eventually get into the place and they set a bunch of the monsters loose and shit. And they meet the director and everything. It's just such an awesome movie. There's werewolves. The werewolf looks amazing. It's always cool to see werewolves because they're my favorite horror creature. It needs some good werewolf horror movies already, instead of the mediocre trash that we always get. He actually gets one of the final deaths of the movie with him attacking the final girl and tearing her up. Marty does shoot him off of her, and they're in like a room where you can't see anything. There's no windows, nothing. Outside is nowhere near this place. And even if it was, full moons are always around, so she doesn't turn into a werewolf. And then they're like, I wish we could see the gods before we die. Because she doesn't want to kill Marty, and obviously Marty's not going to kill himself. So then we see a big hand come out of the ground and destroy the cabin, and the movie ends. It's pretty cool, decent ending. I really like this movie.